Hi, I'm with Shirlee Matheson, and this is an update on one of her books. And we haven't done book talk for a while, so you're a star today.
Oh.
And it's really wonderful to invite you back to Chet TV and to the communities of Chetwynd, Hudson Hope, and of course Fort St. John. This was your book. Can you do a little bit of a history of this book? Because it's now going to be updated, correct?
That's correct. This was Our Valley, co-written with an old-timer of the district, Earl K. Poland. First came out in 1989. Earl had come to the Hudson's Hope in the 1930s, and he was a poet. He really was. His vocabulary was so extensive, and his sense of style and the beauty and the emotions of living in Hudson's Hope came through very clearly. So I worked with him to get his poetry first published, and back in the 1960s when we came here with the first dam, the Bennett Dam, and then it became the prose part. I edited it for him, but publisher said there's more, because Earl's part ended when he, as chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, took Premier W.A.C. Bennett to the head of the canyon to show him, where the river flowed in through the narrow canyon and where the dam site likely would be located. So I picked up the narrative from there and continued the story to the present time, which was 1989 when the book first came out. And it was a phenomenal success. It won the Alberta Nonfiction Award and the silver for BC, the Roderick Haig Brown Regional Book Prize. So that went along very well, and the publisher did 2 or 3 reprints, and then he said, we're ready for an update. So in 2003, I did an update, because the Site C question was looming again. In the 1980s, we lived in Hudson's Hope on the river, and we formed an organization called the Riverbank Property Owners Association and hired a lawyer to represent our interests should Site C be built. And there were thousands of hearings being conducted. In fact, there are trailers full of manuscripts and transcripts from the hearings in the 1980s, both in French and in English.
Wow.
The cost was phenomenal. And then the NDP government got in, Dave Barrett, and said that the project wasn't warranted. The economy had tanked, as it is now, and so it was put away. But as I say in the book, as an engineer once said, nothing is ever, for an engineer, not going to happen, finished. It's simply put on hold to another time. And this other time has come. Now, the unfortunate part is that the Site C project is one of 8 projects that were to be not included by the BC, for consideration by the BC Utilities Commission. The Premier before Christy Clark, Gordon Campbell, thank you, had set aside these 8 projects. So Site C, as it's happening now, is not being evaluated by the BC Utilities Commission. And UNESCO hasn't really been involved. So anyway, it is going ahead, and as Christy Clark said before the election, I want this project to be beyond the point of no return before the election. So what does one do? Where is the turning back point? So this is what I've come to do, to update to 2017 the progress on Site C Dam and what is the feeling of local people. And I've also asked BC Hydro for their responses too.
Who did you interview in the last week? I gather you have quite a long list.
Well, I do. A man named Roy Kelly. His parents owned land at Lynx Creek area, and he decided he wanted to build there. He got a permit from the town. Now he is under the gun for the location. He's having a lot of problems and is quite vocal about those problems that he's having because he will not be so much under the water level, what it looks like it should be because it's very, very low,
Yeah.
but also the road realignment. And they said, Hydros have said at this point they would not give him an access road. So that's his issue. The next person I interviewed was Vic Goldie. He's lived there in Hudson's Hope since the early 60s. I knew him then at the dam. He is a hard rock miner, a blaster, and he has a different opinion. He feels that it's inevitable, go with it, get the best deal you can. He has a trap line that runs all along the river from the halfway, I think, down to Farrell Creek, up to the Moberly River, from halfway to the Moberly. And Hydro has made him a deal because he said it will only affect the strip along what would be the water. And his trap line, of course, goes back many kilometers back. So he'll still have land and whatever. He has the opinion that you simply, play hardball to an extent, but it's going to happen. So look after yourself, look after your family, and just watch what happens, because you can't stop it. I interviewed the mayor of Hudson's Hope, Gwen Johansson, who is in a tough spot because she is representing a divided community. And some people want the jobs. Some people, as I mentioned, say it's going to go ahead. Just get the best deal you can for yourself, the town, the community, the environment, and let it go. Other people are going to fight it till their last breath. Gwen has co-written an article that was in Business Vancouver magazine, a very interesting, in-depth article about the situation. She is personally being affected as she owns riverbank property. And there's a sign in front of her gate showing where the high water line will be, which is 3/4 of the way up her high gate.
Wow.
So what she did when it came time to negotiate the deal for the District of Hudson's Hope, she couldn't do it. She has been such a long-time resident. She's personally affected. She's the mayor. She turned it over to Dave Heiberg, who's on council. And so he was the one taking responsibility for the deal that the District of Hudson's Hope would get from its mitigation for this project. So that's that. I interviewed Jim and Mary Lou Beatty. Now, they are in the first books because their beautiful ranch called Gold Bar was totally annihilated by the W.A.C. Bennett Dam. And they told me of the dealings they've had with hydro in the last 50 years since the W.A.C. Bennett Dam went online, and how the land is still sloughing, sloughing. Properties along the lake shore that were considered very safe far back, they're going down. It's non-stop erosion 50 years later. I interviewed, so many wonderful people who were so honest. Ross and Deborah Peck, whose land is very much being affected. Arlene and Ken Boone, who have definitely made done a lot of work to show what's happening with them. Their third generation family-owned land is just being decimated. Their house will be out. But the worst part, I was there last night, the environmental scars are horrible. Like the Watson Slough, where all these swans and other waterfowl nest and come in. They came in there and they mulched all the, do you know what mulching is? When great big machines just go over these trees and mow them down and go back and forth and back and forth. Now, isn't this spring, isn't this bird nesting season where birds are in these trees and in the slough? And we saw it last night, and it makes you cry. It really does. I interviewed the Godsman boys. So many. They, interestingly enough, own land. They have Crown grants for their land on both sides of the river. on the far side from Hudson's Hope, and they live there, Troy and Steve Godsman, and they see it daily, daily, daily. And what they've seen goes even beyond what so many other people see, because they see how BC Hydro's contractors are tagging the fish and how many dead fish come up, the plans that Hydro has with the bull trout to truck and dump. Have you ever heard such a thing?
No, I haven't heard of what is it?
You gather all these bull trout into a truck, I guess, full of water, hopefully, and you take them down to beyond where the dam will be, and you dump them out. And they're going to live happily ever after with all the other fish that are already there. And so, because bull trout apparently are rather challenged fish right now. And I mean, what's going to happen to the other? So, I mean, it just goes on. When you disturb one little thing, you have to disturb 1,000 other things, but is it ever equal?
Garbage undone. From what I understand, several years to right.
Yeah?
Yeah. Just so many times and but anyway, if you want to use it that way, he could do anything and everything.
They're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make me star. But we didn't arrive in Sudbury until 10 after 6, and of course I did not even have time to have a bath last night, so we're known as the Dirty Seven today.
And in fact, most fiddlers I know are a breed unto themselves, sort of stuff. I mean, a fiddler never belch you with his fiddle.
Look, I wipe more liquor off my chin than the other fellow drank. Now you want to believe that?
Something that is curious, and I've been asked a question, how many actual residents have sold out along the Forsyth Sea?
Well,
do you know?
Yes, quite a few, because I don't know the exact numbers, and I think a lot of people keep it secret. There's the PVLA, Peace Valley Landowners Association, was formed and hired a lawyer to represent their interests. And the idea was that they could talk freely but confidentially among each other, and discuss what to do and what the best deals was. Not money-wise, because each person's place has evaluated differently, but how to get a good evaluation, a fair evaluation, if you're going to sell. Some people are getting older and they said, I don't have 10 years to fight this. I'll sell. Hydro has given me an offer that I can maybe or maybe not buy a place elsewhere. And I know one family that were told they would be above waterline, and then Hydro changed it. And that's another point. People say that every time Hydro representatives come, the map is different.
Oh, wow.
The water level or the safety area is different, and so it's a very mixed message. And so some people certainly have sold. In fact, a good percentage of them have. A few people have not. And the thing is, others say, don't go to expropriation. Then you have lost all your bargaining power. When it's gone to expropriation, whatever you get, and the Boons have gone that route.
Expropriation.
Yes, that's true. And they have been told to get out of their house by May 31st, which is like in a week and a half.
Yeah.
And so the others are going to say, okay, we'll just work it until we can get what is fair. Some people have not even been able to afford a house in Dawson Creek after selling maybe, their acreage with a beautiful log home and this and that. So
it's really sad for them.
It is. It's a very confused time.
Now, these people are your friends, and they've given permission for you to tell their stories, correct?
Yes.
And you have a very big task on hand now.
I have a huge task because I send back their transcripts to them. Because sometimes when people are just speaking, they may make a mistake, in a date or in a fact, or they might want to add something, or even take something out. I mean, it's not going to be a diatribe against BC Hydro. Neither was the other versions of this was our Valley. And so I contacted various people in BC Hydro to ask questions, and I have the series of chapters that I want questions answered they're myriad, because the whole book is an overwhelming array of topics. So I have received a response from Dave Conway, who is the spokesperson for BC Hydro. I haven't opened his attachments yet. I'll wait till I get home and can print them out and look at them over and this and that. I appreciate them writing back, which they did with the earlier versions. It was Hydro's response, and that's all you can ask for, But, I mean, do you want me to tell you some of the topics that we were going to cover?
Yep.
Okay. The coal, a historical headache, that was the chapter. What is happening with the coal? Rich coal seams in Hudson's Hope, probably nothing. But, I want to know, because eminent domain, the people who, had lived in the Bennett Dam area where it was going to be flooded, didn't get a very good deal, and there's still bitterness 50 years later.
Yeah, the Beatties were one of the major
Beatties,
families.
very much.
Yep.
Kylos.
Yeah,
Kylos had built, I interviewed Dave Kylo, they had built up their river boating business. They had all these river boats, and suddenly the river was such a mess of logs that nobody could get through. And he said, you can't take a riverboat on a lake anyway. And so that was it, just one of the businesses. A lake full of logs, that was another. It still is, especially when in the spring when the runoff comes from other rivers and forms at the mouths of creeks all along Williston Lake.
Yep.
And it's just a danger, really. But people have navigated it. There's no more pop-ups. There used to be the deadheads that came shooting up like torpedoes out of the depth. But there's mercury in the fish, but nobody has reported being ill or dying from it. Booms and busts, that whole chapter. The women's protest was in the other book because they weren't hiring local. So I talked about the unions and how they're hiring on this project. And that's going to be in the new update. The dinosaurs, the dinosaur trackways, the new trackways that have been discovered. What is going to happen? Are there, you know, so, oh, you can understand the death of a delta, the Peace Athabasca Delta, what's happening now. Oh man.
You've got a massive job to do.
Yeah, the birds and the bees, the PCBs, the fracking, the mining and mineral block. You know, I could go on, and I will. But
Okay. Well, it's really good that you've come in.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
I look forward to the new book. And congratulations for coming
Thank
back.
you ever so much.
You missed the piece?
I have never left the Peace
Okay.
in my mind. My husband was born and raised in Peace River Town, and we lived here for many years. We've come back every year since the 60s. And so I miss it, yes, but I still have it.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for doing this interview on Book Talk.
My pleasure.
I remember all the places we used to go, but little darling, they're not there anymore. So just remember me, I'll remember you.
What do we have in front of us?
All right, so we are checking out today here at Action Play in Tumbler Ridge. We are checking out a 3D printed topography map of the entire geopark. So what I've done is I've used a 3D printer and some satellite imagery and combined the two. I 3D printed it out so you can actually touch the mountains and feel the streams. And then I've put it all together and hand painted it so it's an interactive model that everybody can understand. If you're coming in to visit us from a different country and you don't even speak English, you can come and actually see which mountains you might want to attempt and which ones you might not want to. And it just kind of brings in a more fun feeling to interact with the land that we have to offer here.
So this is a beautiful model. How long did it take you to do this?
This is actually a model that I've been working on for about a year. It didn't actually take that long, but I had to do some tweaking with some of the satellite imagery that I was getting. It was a little bit skewed, so I had to MacGyver it a little bit. And so to actually print it, I think it was about 85 hours of printing time, and I've put similar time into painting it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's the idea of where it's going to be once it's done? Like, where are you guys going to place it?
So this model of the geopark is going to be available for viewing at the Visitor Information Center in Tumbler Ridge. You may also see it traveling. All of the models that Philiprint makes are built to travel so that people can present their land when they're in a big meeting room. They can actually put the land on the table when they're talking about the land. It's just a fun new dimension when you're talking about it, especially for industries. If they're trying to communicate that they'd like to put a new development in place, it's nice to actually put the land on the table.
Not just beautiful, it's got some brains.
Yeah, it's got some guts.
Now, any highlights of it that perhaps you're very proud of on this model?
I'm very interested and hopeful that this geopark may in the future grow one day. That would be ideal. So I've actually left a little bit of room around the edges of the model just to allow for those changes to happen. We've got all of the BC parks shown inside, all of the different trails. So I've got biking trails, I've got hiking trails, I've got dirt roads, I've got the highways identified. Anything that you would want to come and experience in Tumbler Ridge in our geopark with the ecotourism, you can come and actually feel the land that you're about to go and trek onto and make sure that you're feeling more prepared and get to know the mountains. If you really get to know this model, you could be the type of person that could walk through and know where you're going based on the topography alone. So it's pretty fun to be able to play with it like that. You can touch it and feel it. The kids love it. It's a good time. Perfect.
You also talked about your grandchild,
Is right.
and that's Molly.
So when you have a granddaughter who has music in her, from the time she was born, she had music in her, she inspires a story. And this looks quite a bit like her, and put a piano in front of her, put a set of drums, put a tambourine, or just stand her there, she'll sing, "This girl makes music." So she inspired me to write Molly's Promise.
Chet TV and Peace FM are dedicated to the safety of the communities of the Peace. We will interrupt regular programming and bring you emergency bulletins in the case of serious road closures, floods, evacuation, natural gas leaks, oil spills, fires or explosions in the Peace. Your community TV station, in collaboration with Peace FM, will update you about gathering points where evacuees will meet and where emergency social service resources are available to you during and after an event. Tune into Chet TV at Channel 655 on Bell and Telus, Channel 55 on Air, and Channel 40 on Eastlink. And Peace FM is heard on 94.5 FM in Chetwynd and 104.1 in Dawson Creek. Community TV and radio are here for you 24 hours per day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year.